Hello everybody, this is Kai Marin, and no, the title is not deceiving you. I genuinely believe that Mother's Basement, the famed anime YouTuber, is actually a tourist. Now that might sound outrageous. Alright, you could say retort saying, oh, he's been making videos for 10 years, how could he be a tourist? And my response to that is that tourism, it's not actually about how long you've been watching anime. It just so happens that most tourists picked it up recently. But the whole thing is tourism is actually a mindset. All right? And ultimately, at a tourist's very core, is a tourist at their very core is somebody who doesn't actually care about the hobby they are a part of. All right? They're only in it because it's popular or for some other reason. And ultimately, because they don't actually like the hobby, they seek to change it. All right? To be more suitable to their own tastes. And ultimately, while it's subtle, Mother's Basement exhibits a lot of these tourist traits. And, this isn't an extensive, investigation of him or, his views on this. This is just some stuff I've noticed over time. I'm sure there's a lot more examples, but anyway, I'm going to show some. And what brought this on was, his latest video, The Politics of One Piece. Now, among, left-leaning anime fans really left-leaning anime tourists, there's sort of this idea that One Piece is some kind of, far-left socialist piece of media. Most notoriously, Hassan Piker claimed this, and this Kotaku journalist agrees. I don't know, I saw this one response on Reddit that was kind of good, but anyways, though, Mother's Basement is now on the dog pile, and while his take isn't as bad as Hassan Piker's or, say, Ellen Historian or whoever, he still is contributing to this idea that One Piece is kind of a liberal piece of fiction. And Mother's Basement doesn't really outright say it. It's kind of very scummy the way he argues it. It's sort of a Mott and Bailey tactic where, instead of just outright arguing that it's left-leaning, he instead kind of says it's pro-revolution or, anti-corrupt government, and then just sort of implies that that is leftist. That's kind of what's going on, So he is just contributing to this idea that One Piece is and look, One Piece really is not, a leftist piece of fiction, all right? It's really, look, the most you can say about it is that it's, anti-tyranny, pro-freedom, which is basically about as bipartisan as you can get. And I wouldn't even really say it's even political, because there's sort of a difference, and there's a lot of conflation between, say, philosophy and politics. Politics is, the organization of the state, and philosophy is understanding the human condition. One Piece leans way more into philosophy than into politics, all right? And, you have tons of people like Mother's Basement is, contributing to this, although he's not the worst one, who conflate, these kinds of things, who effectively, willfully, misinterpret a work in order to use it as a political football for their own ends. And it's just it's very disgusting. Look, this is, about as tourist as you can get, But anyways, that's one example, and look, even the claims of One Piece being super political are kind of outrageous. I mean, let's compare it to another very political anime, an actually political anime, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is just straight up about authoritarianism versus democracy. Or, hey, Atlas Shrugged, this is pretty well-known novel. Did you know that it frickin' ends with a 90-page speech which effectively acts as a political treatise? And look, if it's read out, it's over 3 hours long. Yeah. Anyways, though, there are some other examples. I kind of want to talk about his repertoire a bit more. A huge part of Mother's Basement's MO is sort of, shitting on isekai, you could say. He shits on a lot of, I guess, more, mainstream popular, and I not really would say that, but he shits on a lot of specific kinds of anime. So he makes this whole video about isekai, and this one actually might be kind of interesting. So anyway, yeah, let's watch just the intro to this.
bit of a bum rap. I know quite a few anime enthusiasts who won't even look at a show if there's so much as a whiff of truck-kun or cheat powers, and honestly, I can't say I blame them. Speaking as someone who's watched most isekai are terrible. Notably,
see, this is one thing I find really strange about it. He's like, I hate isekai. He hates isekai. He thinks most of them are terrible, yet he watches all of them. And this is the whole thing. Like, it's fine if you don't like isekai, then just don't watch it, okay? Isekai, these kinds of shows have a very strong market, a lot of fans. You know, it is a part of anime culture, yet he spends copious amounts of time shitting on it.
Worse at a notably higher frequency than basically any other genre of anime. And that's speaking as someone who's also watched most harems. A sizable portion of the
He also shits on harems too, but that's kind of another topic.
Isekai audience will slurp up any old slop so long as it stars a nerd from Earth like them with a non-zero chance of pulling some elf eventually in like 30 seasons or so. And I really do mean any old slop. The lowest rated isekai in any given season will almost always pull higher viewership numbers than the best original anime of any given year, as you might.
And, you know, the thing with him is that he has a lot of, you know, elitism with his attitude. You know, it's not enough for, say, him to enjoy the shows that he likes and for other people to enjoy the shows that they like. No, he is resentful that, you know, isekai trash, as he sees it, is more popular than, you know, the shows he believes are superior. You know, he wants these isekai trash to be destroyed to make way for the shows that he deems worthy.
Might recall from my worst of 2024 list, Failure Frame is an isekai in which literally every fight scene is just
poison, 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 poison.
Over and over and paralyze and poison until you just want to make out with a P320. And it has a 4.4 out of 5 on Crunchyroll with 85,000 ratings. For context, Apocalypse Hotel, the best anime of 2025 so far, has barely 4,000. That's 1,000.
See, look, this is what I mean. You know, yeah, that's the kind of attitude I'm talking about displayed right there. And then this part's interesting.
Less than Ugly Mug Epic Fighter, an isekai that looks like this and is called Ugly Mug Epic Fighter. Some of y'all really will watch fucking anything, and the anime industry is...
And this is another ironic thing, but... So, he shits on isekai shows for being too generic, but then you get an isekai with the protagonist who's super ugly, and, you know, you can say whatever you want about the show. That is still a novel twist on the formula, you know? And yet he shits on it for that? Kind of strange.
Some of y'all really give it to you, but that's not the problem with isekai. At least not the one that any of us can do anything about, so not worth making a video about. I can't stop everyone else from watching bad anime, but I can at least help you watch some better ones. Because there is one crucial...
Yeah, this is the whole thing. He has this kind of elitism, you know? Which is kind of really bothersome. And this kind of, you know, attitude kind of has hurt the industry a lot, because it's created almost a stigma around a lot of these kinds of shows. And look, I'll give you an example, and, you know, there's other stuff too. Here's another video. We don't go through this one, but him complaining about another, you know, genre trope he doesn't like, which a lot of people do. And look, I'll say it right here. So this is from Espiritu. Problem with the new wave of AniTuber slop is it's all rage bait by anime haters telling you how they totes love anime, but then spend every video telling you how trash everything is but the top 1% shows to milk to COVID kids' views. And look, this is Mother's Basement to a T. Mother's Basement was this before this was even like a thing. The only difference is that Mother's Basement also shills obscure shows. Alright? But I mean, look, Mother's Basement literally built his career on shitting. He built his career trashing Sword Art Online. Okay? Four out of his 5 most popular videos are all trashing SAO. Like, no joke. Because this is the whole thing, you know? This is kind of what I mean. He was like the original one of these anti-tuber tourist types who shits on everything. Man, also, I found this while looking for it. Tricks. This used to be Jeji, bro, right? Fuck. Talk about brutal. Wait. Man, talk about brutal, man. Oh my god. Yeah. And look, there's more to it too. Yeah, like the roasting of Shield. This is kind of interesting. So, man. I guess I could mention this, but so basically he tries to make this giant leap to say One Piece is some kind of political treatise. But then, you know, when it comes to Shield Hero, he's like, "Oh, if you compare what happens to Naofumi to stuff that totally doesn't happen in the real world, then you're like a bad person." Pretty ironic. Let's see. And also, this is a little bit unrelated, but, you know, Mother's Basement is also a massive contributing factor to the modern state of the anime industry. You know, to the tourist epidemic specifically, because he was one of the number one shills of Crunchyroll. You know, as you can see here, he made this video. This shit came out like 9 years ago or something. I forget when. Long ass time ago. But back when Crunchyroll was first starting to get off the ground, he was one of the number one Crunchyroll shills. There's no good reason to pirate anime. You know, he shamed people, and because of, you know, videos like this, more people moved away from piracy and, more importantly, from fan subs and towards Crunchyroll. And, you know, that might sound all good on the surface, but Crunchyroll has gone off the deep end, you know, especially since they gained a monopoly. Like, there was that recent scandal about how all the, you know, latest subtitles were all total garbage. And now, you know, Mother's Basement, after doing all this damage, he's like, "Oh, Crunchyroll sucks now." Like, come on, man. But yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, like I said, you know, I could make an entire video about Crunchyroll and the fall of fan subs, but I mean, ultimately, you know, the rise of Crunchyroll, you know, also led to the rise of anime tourists, and the rise of anime tourists led to all the problems we have now. But anyways, though, I guess I'll save my coup de grace for last, but another thing I'll mention is, his perspective on certain anime tropes. So he hasn't, from what I can tell, he hasn't talked that much about like lollies or incest. And from what I found, he seems to be pretty negative he seems to be kind of neutral, but leaning towards negative. I'm assuming he just doesn't want to piss off his fans or whatever, but as you can hear, so he's talked about this one anime, Uzumade, which honestly looks pretty based. I might have to go watch this, but so I guess it's about this maid girl who's into this lolly, which, I mean, you know, based. So normally lolly anime is moderately acceptable in story context and awful in visual presentation, so he's just shitting on lolly anime. But this is kind of the opposite. It's really cute and funny 70% of the time, but then the maid periodically turns to the camera and says, "By the way, I'm a literal pedophile." So right here, he's conflating, you know, being a lolicon with being a pedophile. And then, so that's already, you know, a pretty outrageous claim from a guy, and this is 2018, by the way, a guy claiming to be, you know, an anime fan. And then, here it is, he says, "A tiny fraction of anime is about lolly shota stuff. I know, I watch everything every season to make my recommendations. You are no better than people who assume every American adult cartoon is unfunny, intentionally offensive slop like Bricklebit." So, a tiny fraction of anime is about lolly shota stuff. I mean, I would say a much more than a tiny fraction. I'm gonna have to bring up the tag list again from Nhentai. Lolicon is number 6 with 100,000. Well, the number fluctuates if you like reset the page, but look, 100,000 works. Okay, and it's only getting beat out by like soul male, soul female, big breasts. Lolicon is ridiculously popular. Look what it's beating. You know, Lolicon is ridiculously popular. You know, and not even just in hentai. I mean, happy romantic lollies. There's an awful lot of shows here. And by the way, this is just part 1 of 6. You know, here's part 2. And look, not all of these shows have, say, like, fan service, right? But, I mean, a good chunk of them do. I mean, if I go through these ones that I've seen, I mean, this one presumably does. This one for sure. This one for sure. And look, here's this isn't a super extensive list, but I mean, all these shows got fan service, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, like, this is the whole thing. He's like I said, you know, he's mischaracterizing the entire anime community. It's because, and look, even beyond that, I mean, most shows will have, you know, lollies or shotas, even if they aren't sexualized too, right? And even then, or even if they're not the focus. But anyways, like, the whole thing is that he's mischaracterizing the entire, you know, anime fandom here. You know, just to try and make it appear more palatable to, you know, foreigners, basically. And, you know, like I said, also literally equating lolicon with pedophilia, completely insane. And I found some other stuff here too. Like, let's go with, which clip did I want to show? Where was it? Yeah, it was this one. So this is basically like basically you can search YouTubers' channels, you can search the subtitles to find them talking about specific things in their videos. So let's try and play this one.
It does lewd the lolly once, and...
Yeah, so he considers looting lollies a problem, so he's just straight up anti-lolly, which is a, you know, a core part of anime culture and has been for like 40 years, okay? And besides that, I think there was something else here. This one.
Also an otaku lolicon sex pest, which is not the most appealing combination of characteristics, and...
Bruh. Criticizing a waifu for being an otaku lolicon sex pest, that's the perfect combination of traits. And like I said, my god. And then there's also... Which one is it here? Oh yeah, this one.
Incest, right? Oh, you...
Oh yeah, here it is. At least there's no pedophile, pandering, or incest. So, like I said, you know, equating, you know, pedophilia to lolicon again. Because, you know, he seems to really like doing that. So those are some more egregious examples. I'm sure I don't know. The whole thing is that his videos, it's all like kind of sprinkled throughout. You know, he doesn't have like a single video with a bunch of bad takes, you know? He doesn't have like a top 5 worst anime. Well, maybe he does, but I don't think he has a single video with a bunch of bad takes. But if he does, please tell me. If any of you guys would like to either corroborate my claim or refute it, please post evidence in the comments below. I'm welcome to it all. But anyways, though, my last point, this is my coup de grace. This is going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is an anime tourist. Avatar is an anime, F you, fight me. So effectively, this is from 8 years ago. And like I said, you could say I'm maybe digging up some older stuff that's irrelevant. Perhaps he's changed his opinion. You know, it is possible. I kind of doubt it. But even if he hasn't, you know, the mindset he had back then, he still has to an extent now. And look, back then it did do some damage, but anyways, though, so he effectively digs up this, you know, everybody knows what anime is, right? Japanese animation. But he tries to redefine anime, you know, not as Japanese animation, but as anything that's vaguely inspired by anime, you know, anything that's even vaguely inspired by anime. And, you know, if you include Avatar, look, maybe some people are willing to would concede that Avatar is an anime. Most people no, I absolutely not. But he goes even farther than that. He tries to prove that Steven Universe is an anime. I'm not even kidding. Watch the video yourself. It says it right there in the description. He genuinely tries to expand the definition of anime to include Steven Universe. And look, like I said, this just shows how much of an anime fan he isn't. You know, because this is the whole thing. You can argue, because look, really, Mother's Basement, I don't think he really is a true anime fan. I think he really is just more of a general animation fan who just watches a lot of anime. You know, I don't really think he has the mindset of an otaku. I don't think he really likes anime for what it is, or even just accepts anime for what it is. And look, you can see this with this video. I mean, what kind of anime fan would try and expand anime to include Steven Universe? You get what I mean? It's just complete insanity. Oh man, I forgot to dislike all his videos. But yeah, anyways, look, I could make a whole video going through this, but I mean, like I said, but you know, there isn't really that much of a point. But anyways, though, you know, that's about all I want to talk about. You know, Mother's Basement, certainly I'm not a fan. I'm certainly not a fan. But anyways, please comment down below your thoughts. Like I said, if you have any other examples of him either being a tourist or examples of him not being a tourist, please show me. I'm curious. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more content in the future. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.